What we're going to do now is have a panel on personalization. And we have four interesting and very varied jewelry designers here. And the first thing I want them to do is just go down the line, and if they could just very briefly say a little bit about themselves and what brought them to jewelry design in the first place. Just briefly, just a few words. On the back, there's a kind of a loop tape of photographs going through in sort of random order, just so you'll get some idea. Okay. So I can start with Alex.
Oh, me. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Wu. My company is Alex Wu. We're actually a made in New York brand. I am most known for, very personal pieces. I design everything in sterling silver and 14 karat gold as well. And I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit more about personalization. We all do things very differently, but we are all great colleagues in the industry. So it's nice to see some friends and familiar faces today.
Coomi?
Hi, I'm Coomi, and thank you for having me here. I'm from New Jersey for the last 40 years, and it feels good to be in New York City. My designs are all mostly, I would say, one of a kind, and they're all derived from different cultures in the world and interpreted for today's time. And thank you.
Hey, I'm Heather Moore. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I started the company actually here in Brooklyn, New York in '96. And currently, since 2005, I've been focusing on something that I was doing in college, which is actually, making the impression in the metal with people's names and quotes and handwriting. So really making a mark and documenting the milestones that the people have. So we have a foundation of design, and they're allowed to kind of engage and add their story to our kind of blank slates, if you will, of different charms and bracelets and the whole gamut. So that's right now, and we manufacture everything in Cleveland as well. So.
Hi, I'm David Rees. I'm co-owner of 10,000 Things, along with my business partner, Ron Anderson. We've been in business 23 years. 17 of those years we've had a store in Manhattan, first on 19th Street and most recently on 14th Street in the Meatpacking District. And we're both self-taught jewelers, no formal education, and so our work has a certain kind of originality and a particular kind of perspective. And we do fine jewelry. We have a charm line called Good Fortune, which kind of relates to the panel that we're on today, and silver and gold.
Thank you very much indeed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of start a conversation going, and not taking you in any particular order, just sort of kind of randomly as questions come up. But I'm going to start with Heather, because the thing you mentioned in an email to me was the idea that the pieces you're producing are heirlooms going down through the generations. So how does this tie in with what you're doing, the sort of personalization of something? Explain the heirloom aspect of this, of how you see it.
I would say that I'm a kind of a manic archivist. So I have always documented things in either writing things down or photography or what have you. And for me, kind of once we have this ongoing joke in the studio about if someone brings a fun story or has something that they want to share, we always kind of say, oh my God, you should do a charm about that. So holding on to the history of that moment, what shaped you, is really something that's important to me. And I find that personalization definitely adds more value to any material that you put it on. And I just think it's important to document your life and what shaped you.
So you're talking about sort of the timeless quality of it. Mm-hmm. We've also got very much for present. David, ask you, in terms of very much the now, sort of celebrity, inspiration, or people want something that's very personal to them, but their desire for something personal to them is based on what some other celebrity's done. So is there a kind of paradox here?
Well, I think personalization is a very conceptual word insofar as how it applies to jewelry, because I think that even something that doesn't have an initial on it or doesn't have a symbol on it becomes sort of an amulet or a talisman for the person. It could be anything that we make. It could be anything. And jewelry becomes so important to the wearer that, I don't know, is it the cart before the horse or the chicken or the egg? What came first? It's all personalization. So I think that celebrity, I'm sure the speaker before expounded on this concept of celebrity driving trends, and I think it shows up strongest in personalization, because I think if somebody sees something in Us Magazine or People Magazine and they're wearing a nameplate necklace or they have something with their children's initials on it, everybody wants it, and it drives it into a giant trend.
Coomi, have you any thoughts on this, of personalization being influenced by what's going on in, say, the celebrity world?
Like he said, it's
Move the mic a little.
Uh,
Mic rationing.
personalization comes in in a lot of different forms. A lot of my pieces are created. They're personalized in the sense that some of my pieces go back to a genetic map prints. I take ancient arrowheads. I go into the ancient cave paintings. I incorporate the cave paintings with the arrowheads or ancient artifacts or ancient coins that will tell a story. So it's a personal story. Let's say I'm doing a coin necklace. So it's the story of, it's coins from all the countries that Alexander the Great conquered. So it's personalized in that way. It's about history, And it makes the wearer feel that they're in a different era and they're connecting with the past. So that, for me, that's personalization.
Alex, do you see any sort of recent trends in this? What do you, in the personalization side?
Well, I think personalization, sometimes they describe it as a trend, but I don't think it's ever something that will ever go away. I think you're always having your first child, or you're getting married, or there's always a milestone in your life that you're going to want to celebrate, and I think jewelry is the perfect outlet for that. And I think that's, really where my brand has grown, is in that personalization category, because, as you enter every stage in your life, whether you're graduating college or you're first getting married, there's always a certain token or something that you want to keep kind of close to your heart. So I think it's something that I know a lot of people describe as a trend, or it's a hot new trend, but I don't really see it as necessarily a trend. I really see it as something that will hopefully last forever. I mean, these are pieces that we design to hopefully, a mom will pass it down to her daughter, or she'll give it to her niece or something. I mean, we designed in gold, which is a precious metal, and hopefully keeps its value. And it's something, like Heather just said, it's an heirloom. And I think that's what makes personalization so important and such an important part of our lives. It's something that we invest in our lives, but it also, the gold is an investment in the precious metal. So there's so much, and there's so many wonderful romantic components to personalization in jewelry, I think.
David, what about you? Have you seen any trends recently in the way people view personalization, the sort of demands they have, or?
Well, I think they're very demanding about personalization.
Has that changed?
I think every customer that comes in the store wants to think that what they're walking out with is personalized specifically for them, or they want to add something to it to personalize it. And, in the years that we've had a store, 17 years, I find more customers come in and feel more comfortable asking you to do that. So that seems like a big change to me. I think people are thinking that they want things to be personalized, and that they can have things personalized, and it makes them want it even more, and they ask all the time. So to me, that's really changed. People used to just buy what was in the case. Now they want to put their own stamp on it.
Is this partly a reaction against all of the mass production of jewelry and
I don't know what the cultural implication, I don't understand where it's coming from. It could be coming from reality television. We don't know. I mean, people are thinking of themselves in a different way, and so they feel that what they wear needs to express themselves. It has to be a symbol of them, in a way.
So
which is a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing.
But
I think it's a good thing.
There's also quite a responsibility of you guys, isn't it? I mean, Heather, this is a sort of big responsibility, that you're providing them with something that's going to last and last and last and mean so much.
Absolutely. And to your point, I think that when, you're designing a necklace and you want to choose, you allow your customer to choose a certain color or choose a combination that's unique to them, then they hold more ownership of it, because they took part in the discussion.
That's an excellent point.
And the way that it was edited and put together just for them. So, I think that makes them stand taller, you know.
Can we have any thoughts on that? About
I think it could also be with your existing pieces that you have. It doesn't actually have to be that personal. Like I have this bracelet that's got, it's 52, it's one bracelet, but it's 52 wires, and it's like one for every week of the year. And then I did 2 in diamonds because I have 2 boys. And I get weird requests from customers, and one of them said, well, I was married thrice and they left me very rich. I'd like to add 3, so I always remember them. So we added, that's personalization for her, you know. So there's all different forms of personalization that they come up with, and they're hilarious sometimes. So yes, but it means a lot because they want to take a piece of jewelry that no one has. That's them, you know. So they want it to be personalized for them. So yes.
You've raised an interesting thing there. You used the word weird. Can I go down the line and ask each of us, starting with Alex, what's the weirdest sort of request you've had for personalization? One that you can repeat in public.
Well, you know what? My jewelry is very optimistic. It's very happy. That's kind of the inspiration behind my pieces. So I think if we get a request for something that is very not agreeable, I think that's something that would, I don't know, maybe I would have to kind of think about whether I'd want to produce that. And we do get requests from customers. I mean, people want to personalize these things. They want to add an engraving, or they want to solder pieces together. And we do oblige, and we want to do that. We want to make it really special for them. But there are moments where customers will ask for something that you just know is going to be hideous. And at some point, you still have to stand your ground because we are designers, and they are hiring us as designers for our aesthetic point of view. So I think you have to know the balance of when something is really unattractive and you don't want to put your name on it, and then you kind of want to give your advice and say, well, you can make it this way, and maybe we can both meet halfway and produce something that you'll love and something I'll be proud of.
Coomi, you're the one that raised the word weird. Are there any particular examples?
Very weird. I did this pendant that's a boat pendant, and it had aquamarines floating at the bottom for waves. And someone came to me and said, my husband loves boats. I want to put his ashes underneath instead of the aquamarines. Can you do that? And I was like, no. And she was like, why won't you do it? So I'm like, because I can't trust my craftsmen to make sure the ashes go in, or if some of them fly away, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But that was the weirdest request I ever had, yes.
Heather, have you had any strange?
Let's see. I would say that we have had requests for swear words, and I always put the kibosh on that. And but I think to Alex's point, directing your customer into something positive is really good. And we actually do a lot of pieces about people who have passed away. And we do people bring in letters and their signatures, or maybe like the signing the end part of a note. That is super sweet. But I mean, I had a customer one time say, okay, I want to do my mom's name on the front and then forever missed on the back. And I was like, that is, first of all, that's something that obviously, that's an obvious. Like, of course you're going to miss her all the time, but I don't want you to have be a Debbie Downer, and like showcase something, and then everyone's like, oh, that's great, And so, I'm like, tell me something funny about your mom. And so, engaging in the customer and really getting a funny story out so that you can document it appropriately, and that when she shares it, everyone smiles and they, have a fond memory. So I think that's how I kind of focus the customer, so.
David, how about you? Anything that you've sort of said no way, or you've crit?
Oh, no, I always say yes. We never say no way.
Okay, give me an example of one of the strangest things you've complied with.
Well, to me, it's not strange, but people cringe when I say it. We had a customer. Okay, it was Susan Sarandon.
Yeah.
And you're not going to say no to her.
No.
So she comes in and she has a bag full of her children's teeth, and wanted us to make something special. So we made a very beautiful bracelet. And if you didn't know, you would think they were pearls. And So that's, I mean, that's weird, but it was pretty. I mean, it ended up being beautiful, and so I don't think it was weird. And we were happy to honor it, and I think that, you know, that's about as extreme an heirloom or a personalized piece as could be. To the day, I still have bags of teeth in the safe, and I always look at them like, whose teeth are these? It's happened more than once.
Were you ever worried that you might have cracked a tooth?
Oh yeah, the other day I woke up and I thought, wow, it's been about 10 years. I wonder if they've degraded. Because, you know, you can't, I protected them, I cleaned them and coated them, and, you know, but they are drilled. I'm sure they're degrading in some way.
Gold.
They were set in gold, yeah.
Yes. Because the wonderful thing here was,
It looked Victorian.
If you'd
It looked
done this
really
in
pretty.
the UK, you could have had a lot of fun with the hallmarking authorities. Because
Oh, yeah,
you
of
could
course.
say you're exempt from hallmarking because it's a
Right.
precious metal support for dental work.
Right, exactly.
I think you've got a lot
No,
of
that
fun.
makes me think of one, it was probably when I lived in New York and I had the enamel line, and a woman had gotten in an accident and the screws were taken out of her arm or something.
Oh.
And they wanted me to bezel the screws. And I was like, okay. You know, but I mean, how do you work around something like that?
But you did it.
I did it. So.
After this, you know, you're going to get a lot of really weird requests from these guys out there. Kumi, what about you? Anything that's made you cringe, or you think my entire artistic integrity is at stake here?
Just the ashes, because what if they blew away or something, you know? And sometimes they'll come in and a lot of customers will come in and teach you how to do things, you know, which is really weird. And well, the weirdest request I get is there'll be a beautiful necklace and they'll come, well, why do we have diamonds at the back? Or why do we have, can you make it into 3 pieces because I have 3 kids, you know, cut it up and make it into 3 pieces. For them that's personal because they want all 3 to have the same thing. But I cringe at stuff like this. Or they'll take different pieces and say, can you put them together? And it's just ugly. And I'm like, I did it for a customer once and I've always regretted it, so never again.
I mean, I think one of the things that cropped up this morning was the idea that different people see things in very different ways, and there's no sort of single judgment for something. Do you sometimes, let's start with you, Alex, I mean, do you sometimes have a piece of jewelry that you view when you sort of created it, come up with the idea that you knew what it represented and why, but somebody buys it from you and has a totally different view of what it means to them?
Yes, that's happened. One of them is a funny story. Well, I have 2 stories. But the first one is I designed an Italian horn as part of my luck collection. I grew up in a time where a lot of people wore Italian horns, and, you know, it's very lucky in the Italian culture. And people would come up to me in a trunk show and they'd say, what is that? And I'm like, it's an Italian horn. And they say, oh, I thought it was a sperm. And I was like, I wouldn't design that. And no, it's not a sperm. Sometimes people do interpret things very differently. But then on another note, you know, I have inspiration from women and really the stories that they want to share. So one of my first collections was my little numbers, and I really designed it to be a little bit more mysterious than just letters or initials. I felt that numbers were personal, and it would always kind of raise a question to somebody like, oh, why do you wear that number? Like, what's the reason? And, you know, single women love it because guys always come up to them in bars and ask them, what's your number? Why are you wearing that? So it's a great conversation starter. But I also had a lot of success with, you know, mothers who wore numbers, the number of their children. And so Kelly Ripa was one of the first ones. She wore a number 3 because she had 3 children. And the funny thing is when we got it, you know, published in a great magazine like People, we started selling so many number 3s. And I was like, I can't imagine that everybody has 3 children. It's very weird, but it's our best-selling number. But I was like, okay, to each their own. But there was, you know, one more time I was at an event and I was a trunk show and this woman wore a number 1. And number 1 is probably not my top selling number. And I asked her, you know, why did you choose the number 1? And she said, you know, I'm going through a really hard time in my life. And I felt the number 1 just reminded me to live one day at a time. And I thought that was so special because to me, you know, she brought a new story to me and a new interpretation of one of my pieces. And I felt that was something I just never forgot. And I've always kind of shared it as much as I could.
That's nice, thank you. David, can I come back to you? Anything with you where sort of people have seen something that you produced in a totally different light from you that you're aware of?
Well, I think we make things that we're not aware of. I mean, we make shapes that look like things that we don't realize, and then later you think, oh, And that's happened, but you know, because our work is very, our work is very abstract. The shapes are abstract. It's not. I mean, we have a charm line that's very literal, but mostly the sculptural elements in our work are very abstract, and sometimes they end up looking like, you know, everybody sees genitals in the things that we make. And you know, you don't make it with that in mind, but then sometimes you have to admit that it does look a little sexual in some way.
Well, the old saying is everything's either concave or convex. Therefore
Exactly.
It's got to do with sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's classic.
Classic.
It's a classic design problem.
Classic design problem. Heather, do you have classic design problems?
I think, well, our pieces are basic on a certain level with our shapes and stuff like that, so we haven't had any wild interpretations of them. Not so far, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's fun to see people's drawings and how, and you know, what they've come up with, and everyone has their own comments in the studio, but it's not so much.
Coomi?
No. Nothing that I'd like to mention.
Oh, no, you can't say that, but it's obvious. Really? Nothing?
Someone wanted me to carve, take an emerald and carve certain parts of the body out of it that he wanted to wear around his neck. And I was like, you know, I don't mind doing it, but I really can't go to these guys who are my carvers and tell them, can you do this for me as a woman? So then there was something in the case. He said, oh, but that looks like this. Can you do this and this to it, and then it can look like this? So everyone looks things, but yes, it's very sexual. When they look at things, you know, especially men, they like to interpret everything as when they're buying for their wives. They love to get something that feels it's a little sexual, yes. So they look for that.
Right, they're all taking notes out there, right?
Well, that's
the other side
personalization.
of this. I should probably have this is probably most applicable for you. Is there anything where you have an inscription or something that you're not quite sure what's going on? They've asked for something, and they won't tell you exactly why it's special or why it's funny or why it's romantic.
Well,
do you have examples?
I would say, I mean, a lot of time we'll have a bunch of initials. It'll almost look like a text or something like that. But it's inside jokes are very common in our pieces, especially when groups of people buy, pieces. So it could be a bachelorette party or, you don't know what really happened, and you're like, you don't need to tell me. No, you're good. You're good. And just keep it, amongst the group. So.
Do you ever get asked for anything, Alex, that you don't know quite why they're asking for something like that, and it's just some sort of little secret?
I don't really do like Heather said, like if someone asked for an inappropriate word, I don't really do that. But we did make one necklace for one of our top retailers. It was the owner of the store. She wanted WTF, so we did make that for her.
I've done that too.
Coomi, any?
Yeah, I did one where it said I, H, and U. And I found out later on that they were getting divorced, and he had this big divorce party, and he sent that to as a gift before the divorce party. So it was like, it just said I, H, U, and I couldn't figure out what it was.
You mentioned, Alex, the dealings through retailers.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing directly with customers, there is this one-on-one. You might not always get exactly what it is they're trying to say or why, but there's this sort of relationship between the two of you to design something that's personal to them. If you've got this sort of intermediary barrier, if you like, of a retail store, how does that affect? I mean, let's start with you, actually.
I mean, we usually try to accommodate, most of our retailers' requests. I mean, if it's very customized, it is a final sale item because we don't want to get stuck with whatever this thing is. So we just, definitely assure our retailers, please make sure this is exactly what they want. I think Heather probably deals with this the most, as really, making sure this is exactly what you want, because it's once you've done it, you can't really change it or alter it.
Coomi, next in line. Do you deal through retailers at all? Or?
Only through retailers, yes.
Yes, you do. Do you get? Do they sometimes sort of filter a request in a way that you're not quite sure? You wished you could actually face the customer and talk to them directly?
Most of the time, especially with my pieces, and if it's a custom-made piece, yes. Sometimes you have to go through it 5 or 6 times and send it back and get it back, and In the end, you're like, let me just fly down and meet the customer and get this done once and for all. Yes, there's a big difference.
So I know this is something you've raised, Heather. I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel retailers are a nuisance or the...
No, retailers are the face of the company outward facing around the country. So the biggest, most important thing when you're dealing with stores is you have to train them to understand how to listen to their customer, how to be an active listener, how to help them funnel themselves to a decision. I think sometimes we have opportunities where we can choose an ambassador of a store, so there's like one person who's kind of the spearheader of the collection. But yeah, you can have, the last thing you want is to have a retailer or a sales associate suggest a piece to a customer and sell it when the person's kind of apprehensive and not sure, and then ultimately isn't proud of what they're wearing. Because at the end of the game, you have, if someone's proud of their piece, they're going to refer your collection to their friends, and they become the best salespeople. So I think you really do have to nurture your stores and make sure they understand how to be listeners, because you've got a lot of different. You've got a format of commission-only stores, and then you've got a teamwork environment. And sometimes, I've heard people say, well, I'd rather sell a watch than get to know my customer, and so that's that's something where that's maybe more of a short-sighted than long-term. Partnership with your customers, because you can have them for a lifetime if you treat them well and you direct them well. So.
Thank you. David, I mean, do you deal via retailers?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, do you find sales associates actually useful in this?
Oh, definitely, because
they know what they're doing.
Well, yeah, and you have good cop, bad cop. I feel that, they have a firmer handle on their customers than I do, and they can lead them to the correct resolution of the problem much easier than I can. In my own shop, I don't have that, and I find it, communication can be very difficult, especially when you're talking about something visual, and often people don't realize what they're going to get or what they're asking for, what it's really going to look like. And so I think having retail accounts and having those salespeople who have a vested interest in that customer, it's great. It's a real asset.
So how do you sort of train associates? I mean, what part do you play in the associates knowing what it is you can do, what's possible, what's not possible?
I feel like probably all of us feel like there's never enough time to do that properly, and I think there's never enough communication because there just isn't enough time in the day, and the more you can teach them about what you do, the more tools you're giving them to make that sale. And so it's something I always feel like I'm lacking in.
Well, you Alex, you feel that sales associates know what they're doing in this?
I mean, some of our retail partners are fantastic. They really understand the product, and we do our best to educate and provide as much knowledge as possible. It's it's hard because we can't be everywhere and be at every single location. But the ones that we can be, we try to do a good product knowledge to them. I think it's important because they are selling designer pieces. They are kind of our ambassadors, and it's really wonderful to have great retailers that understand the brand, have personal passion about it. When we have retailers who the owners actually own my pieces and wear it, it's such a different story than a retailer that doesn't have anybody kind of invested in the line. I think when they personally love it, it's going to be a bigger success.
Coomi, do you have any input into sales associate training?
Yeah, we have a very strong training program, and we actually reinforce it every 6 months because salespeople forget, and for them it's whatever they can sell at that moment. You're not priority. So we have a very, very strong program, and we keep, every time we send something out, a new line, not only do we do the sales training, we keep sending materials to them every 6 weeks that this is what it was about. We keep reinforcing it. We do a great incentive, so they wear it, and once they're wearing it, they want to know more about that line or that product, so they can sell it and convey to their customers how they feel about it. So that part is very, very important.
Heather, I think You, anything to add to this?
What's that?
Anything to add to sort of sales associate training, or you?
It's so important. And you'll have some stores that have turnover, and then some stores that have, people that have worked in the store for, 15 years. I think what I find most interesting is that when you go to a store, the first thing I do is I go in the back room because I see their form of communication. And, sometimes you'll have stores that you have one person that's reading the emails and telling everyone, but then they get distracted. And so trying to get a hold of, making sure you have contacts with everyone that works in the store, from the jeweler up to the person that's the manager, and trying to make sure that you're interactive with them. It's a big job. And, I always try to, you gotta be talking to the store at least twice a month, aside from just getting the orders and processing them. You want to touch base and, just check in. And but the training involved is something that's totally ongoing. So.
Mustn't forget, this is a gold conference. So what I'm going to ask each of you, starting with Dave at that end, say something about what you think about gold in terms of your designs. How do you feel? Your connection, your emotional attachment, your love of it, hate of it?
Well, it's gotten much too expensive. That's how I feel about it. Just kidding. I think gold is the most important metal that we work in. I think it has the longest history. It's something that, our particular aesthetic has sort of an antique but modern feeling. And I think that gold gives you that mood better than any other metal.
We're talking yellow gold.
In particular, yellow gold, yes. And so the history of yellow gold throughout the history of jewelry is what attracts me the most to it, and it has the most meaning in our pieces.
You think that's the same for your customers, then? Do you think they feel the same, or?
Yes, I think sometimes you have ladies who say, I don't wear yellow gold, no matter what. And, that always disappoints me because I love yellow gold. But no, I think gold's the most important metal to work in.
Thank you. We're taking note of this, right? Gold's the most important metal. How do you feel about gold? What's your...
Okay, so we work with rose, yellow, green, and white golds. And I love the different combinations. We always encourage our customers to do, a yellow charm with a rose gold frame, and then the next one we'll switch it. So then the next one would be, rose and with a yellow frame. So there's some interaction between the charms. It's just, to me, it's more interesting and it's warm. There's people, we also offer things in silver with gold frames also, which gives your customer base, a broader customer base, and the different price points. But gold doesn't tarnish, and I like the sound of it. It's a denser metal, so it's got a higher pitch when you're going, running up the stairs. But no, I just think it's a beautiful, I just like the colors together, so, yeah.
Coomi, your pieces have a very kind of ancient-y sort of feel to them in a way, so presumably you like gold.
Wrong question to ask, because I can go on for hours. I was born in India, the country with, I think, the biggest hoarding of gold in the world. And I think we're born literally with gold. I mean, before we are a week old, our ears are pierced, we have earrings on. The day you're born, your grandmother comes, puts gold bracelets for you, little anklets. I mean, we are literally born with gold in India. So you cannot move away from gold. It's also considered very auspicious in India. The color, the purity, the purer the gold. 14 karat is sold very little over there because they feel the purer the gold, the more connection it has to your body, spiritually and energy-wise. So, I love gold. I grew up wearing gold. I was born wearing gold, let's say. Everyone I've seen. Yeah, you had the maids who came to the house in the morning. They wore gold, It's not auspicious to not wear gold. it doesn't matter. Before you feed your children, you have to wear gold. That's how important it is, you know. So for me, yes.
I like that. That's a good one.
Has to be gold.
Alex, how about you? How do you feel about gold?
I mean, I love to mix my metals. I'm a huge proponent of that. I'm always telling people, don't just wear one color, mix them up. But I do love gold. I mean, I think, with the gold prices, people were resistant at one point, but I think I would say in the past year, our gold sales have gone up tremendously. And that's a really great feeling. I think, I basically associate the 80s with gold. And back then, no woman would wear an engagement ring that wasn't yellow gold, which I think is so funny because now you really rarely see yellow gold engagement rings, although now I think it's trending back. So it's nice to see it, how things come in cycles. And I love the look of gold. I never leave the house without wearing gold, so I'm a huge advocate for gold.
Fantastic. How are we doing for time, Lisa? Couple more minutes. Okay, what can I get through in 2 minutes? Really prepared to talk about what's coming next.
Materials, techniques.
I don't want to I don't want to talk about sort of plans, it's a secret, but anything coming up that, new ideas that you can share with us, any of it? Heather, you've got this sort of smile on your face.
Well, this year we've been focusing on our bridal collection, so that's been a ton of fun. But gosh, I don't know. I mean, there's so many great things that we're working on in R&D. We just, at Centurion, at the last trade show in Scottsdale, we did a ring that was a locket, which was really fun. So there's a lot of brewing kind of ideas.
Watch this space, basically. Anybody else Dave, you want to say anything about?
We're just doing a lot of one-of-a-kinds, which are all based on a particular stone or a pearl or whatever we found at Tucson, which wasn't so long ago. So that's what we're working on. A lot of beautiful opal things.
Oh,
Nice.
Coomi, anything you talk?
We're doing sculptures based on Egypt, on the Egyptian, ancient Egypt, and which has layers and layers and layers. It's three-dimensional in gold. Hopefully they'll be done in time.
In time for what?
In time to sell, because it takes forever. It's very minute and very labor-intensive work. So I don't know why, but I'm always drawn to things that are very labor-intensive, and it's a curse. But
Alex, anything for the future?
Yeah, I think a few of us are going to be in Vegas at Couture. So I usually debut a lot of lines in Vegas. I'm actually working on something currently. We just talked about gold. I actually primarily work in 14 karat, but we're actually going to be debuting an 18 karat line this summer. So I'm very excited about that. And not to give away too much, but obviously this personalization and the story is a huge component and a part of it, and it's something that I want to grow, and I hopefully people will like it. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully everyone else will be.
Fantastic, thanks. So just the final thing, just going down the line, starting with you, David. Is do you wear a piece that is personal to you that you can tell us very briefly about?
They're just little, sort of like charms,
Yeah.
more or less, that I made for myself, carved and set myself. One's Persian turquoise, which I got really cheap, so it means a lot to me. The guy didn't know what he had, so in some way that makes it seem so precious that I got this amazing thing. And then I have this sapphire, Montana sapphire piece that I set. And I do wear these every day, and it's been about 10 years.
Fantastic. Heather, anything?
Let's see. Well, I would say this is one of my favorite rings. It's got my kids' names on it over and over again. Yeah. And then someone very important to me who works in my company for a long time now, she's got cancer, so all of us are wearing her signature. So hopefully she'll get through it. And some other ones too.
Coomi, what's your way?
Well, I have my engagement ring that I haven't taken off in 42 years. It's never been reset in 42 years, and I'm surprised the diamond hasn't fallen off. And also this necklace that I wear when I'm not in a store working. So these are all the charms I've had since I was a kid. So every year, different aunts or brothers or sisters or my husband, whatever they gave me, and I had all these little pieces. And I do not wear little jewelry. It's like, it's lost on me with my hair. So it has to be something that's bold in this. So I had them for years, and what do I do with them? So about 15 years ago, I took them all and I made a necklace out of it. And I also made a bracelet. And it's really funny because last week I was in a store and someone came in and said, I love your necklace, is it for sale? And I said, no. So she says, I want one like that. So I'm like, well, bring all your charms and I'll put it together for you. And she says, no, I want exactly the same thing. I'm like, but this is very sentimental. She says, I don't care, I love the way that's done. Can you recreate it? I said, but I don't know how much it costs. She says, I don't care. I want the piece. So now when I go, I'm going to take it out, open it, and recreate each and every piece for her. So it's, that's, for her, that's personalization, I suppose.
Alex, are you wearing it? Tell us about
I mean, I wear my little white gold and diamond A every day almost. And people think it's usually for me because my name is Alex. But my son's name is Alexander, so I like to think that it kind of represents him and keeps him close to my heart. And I'm also wearing this gold bears piece. I did a design collaboration with Disney Nature Films. Their movie's coming out this Friday, Bears. If anybody has seen the commercial, it's great. It's inspired by the movie, and it's a mother and her 2 twin cubs, and that's interpreted in this design of this gold pendant that I'm wearing.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think on that note, can I say thank you very much indeed?
Yeah.
On the line, David, and,